Yeah, I'm back.
Clifford Coonan,
My
DW
internet
owned
died.
China
I don't know
analyst.
why.
Clifford
I had to
spent
restart my
about
modem.
more than a decade reporting and living in China, so he has deep knowledge of the country and how it functions. To his right, Dustin Heberlein, an old hand, a seasoned hand at DW News Desk. You all have seen him before. I think he's back from a holiday.
I'm back from a holiday, so I'm
refreshed.
fresh and energized. I'm ready to give you guys whatever you need.
Context would be very good. I think that's what you'll be providing us.
I was hoping for holiday stories, but I'm also willing to give context.
We'll get to the holiday stories in a moment. Let's provide some context to our people. And there's Jared Reed, again, a seasoned hand at DW, who's going to be managing the chat.
Can I have a
And
holiday?
all the,
Yeah, can we all
you know,
have a
can we all
holiday?
just have a holiday? Exactly. Can we all just, maybe
to
after we
be
deal
here.
with this visit. That's Jared Reed, whom you don't see sitting at the table is Michelle Stockman, again, a seasoned DW hand. She's today the producer for this conversation. She's sitting in the technical gallery, is what we call it, with the rest of our very able and apt technical team, which is making this
Hey, Rusty.
conversation possible.
Yeah,
Yeah, my
and,
internet
as
died.
well as
I
this
don't
fantastic
know
team
why.
here and
I had to
behind the
restart my
scenes,
modem, but it's
and
all
of
good
course
now.
Clifford, who is our expert on China. We also have two other guests who'll be joining us a little bit later in this stream. Firstly, we have Teresa Fallon, and she is director of the Centre for Russia, Europe, Asia Studies, and she's going to be talking quite a bit about China and Europe's relationships when it comes to trade, when it comes to security. And after her, we will be joined by Tamas Matura, who is an associate professor from Corvinus University of Budapest, and he will be talking about Hungary's relationship with both the EU and, of course, China. So definitely worth staying and hanging around to hear what they have to say.
And those experts are coming up in a moment. So everybody in the chat, send us your questions, comments, or observations. We can put them to our experts when they join us. And that's happening quite soon. But before that, we have something for you to do. We have a poll question that you should really answer. It should be visible in the chat. Jared Reed has more on that.
That's right. So please do vote. I'm going to read out the poll now. It's what do you think defines China-Europe relations? So number one, partnership and shared interests. Option number two, rivalry, competition and distrust. Number three, so both partnership and rivalry, depending on the situation. And number four, the classic, it's too complicated. And at the moment, both is just a little bit ahead of the option of rivalry. So we'll see how that develops over the course of the next hour or so.
Exactly, and we will have the results for you at the end of that conversation. I mean, we also don't know how long this conversation is going to be. I think we could talk about this for hours.
For a long time, and it's going to be a packed stream. And
but we also want to go for a holiday, so we can't talk forever.
You make us sound lazy.
Yeah. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Jared. And before we get going, let's just have a bit of a catch-up, Dustin, with what has been going on with President Xi's visit. Has it all been, excuse my French, bonhomie?
Ooh la la. Sorry.
I mean, no, I will excuse your French.
Europeans.
No, so, of course, we didn't just pick like Europe and China. Obviously, you can always talk about Europe and China relations, but we picked it because Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, is visiting Europe at the moment. He is going to France first, then Serbia, then Hungary, and then he just so. What I can already talk about is the visit in France. He has met Macron, like the French president, and knowing Macron, he always tries to for a personal touch in his diplomacy, and we actually have some pictures of that where you can see like how he took Xi Jinping to his favorite childhood holiday spot. It's like a village in the Pyrenees. In
lovely
French.
weather.
Yeah, lovely
Oh,
weather.
my goodness.
Yeah, there's been lots of comments about how this weather kind of ruined this what was supposed to be like a very personal, nice outing.
Dear.
They're enjoying it.
Are they?
I mean,
What's not to enjoy?
they have to smile for the cameras, I guess. I imagine it must have been pretty cold. But yeah, this is where Macron spent his childhood vacations apparently, and that's like what you're seeing there is like a French folk dance. So that's just what's the local culture, I guess. But what did they actually talk about? You know, so she did say that he, like the biggest development, I guess, he asked for like a peace during the during the next Olympics in the summer, a world peace that's
Which are being held in Paris.
Yeah, they call it an Olympic truce. Like it's a long tradition. Other heads of state have asked for this before,
God, the Olympics.
and this brings him.
Olympics are so
this
corrupt.
is kind of how far he's willing to go when referencing the Ukraine war, because like he's famously China's not delivering weapons to Russia, is what they say, but still, obviously, Europe would like them to go further with embargoes. So that's been a big talking point. And if you zoom out a bit, you can really see that like Europe is a bit on the fence.
It's a
when it
bunch
comes
of
to
like
China.
illegal
Macron is more on the
workers
side of,
who
let's
work
be
on like
friends with China.
the
But,
buildings for the Olympics, and
on
they
the
just
other
get
hand, there's been
they
lots
just
of
die.
talks of like, does Europe need to be a bit careful as well? You know, the US and China are like have tense relationships right now. So the question is like maybe Europe should be a bit more careful with what they want from China, and maybe careful with their supply routes as well, not to rely too much on them economically in case a conflict ever approaches. Xi Jinping's next stop is Serbia, so that's where
he is at the moment, isn't
yeah, that's where he's at the moment, and he will be visiting an.
Are we back? What is up with my
what they are
internet?
supposed to do,
Jesus.
you know. And then next up is Hungary, which we will talk about later in the program as well. Where we expect that the visits in like Serbia and Hungary are like a bit more easy for Xi Jinping than the visit in France. Like he will get more pushback from Macron than he will get and the other countries. But you might notice there's a bunch of countries I didn't mention. They're also in the EU that Xi Jinping did not visit. He did not visit Germany. He did not visit Italy. And actually, I was hoping that
that's
Clifford could
unfortunate.
maybe get in on this.
Italy's
and,
nice to
talk us
visit.
about why did Xi Jinping select these countries? Why is this where he's going?
Well, it's a funny thing. China really likes France, and the Chinese Communist Party really likes France. And some of the great leaders of the Communist Party, Deng Xiaoping, who was the architect of economic reform in the 80s, he studied in Paris. Zhou Enlai, one of the early premiers of China, he studied in Paris. There's always been this sort of, they've always had a sort of a revolutionary link. They've always felt a revolutionary link to France. And they've always felt that France stood alone in Europe as an outlier. So there's a lot of respect there for the French. That said, I think this visit overall is about a lot more than that. I think it's about actually starting a rift or building on a rift within Europe. It's about dividing Europe. It's a strategic masterclass in many ways, the choice of the countries involved. Each has their own different position in terms of creating disorder within the European framework. Serbia is always an outlier, very close to Putin, also trying to get into the EU, but increasingly looking remote from the EU accession, or looking increasingly remote from the EU accession race. Then Hungary is obviously an EU member, but has very much hitched its wagon both to China in economic terms and also to Putin in ideological terms, and this sort of authoritarian alliance there.
Right.
And then France is feeling a little bit left out of defense networks that you see in Asia. Yeah. We've had France submarine sales that have fallen by the wayside, and so it feels excluded from some of the geopolitical stuff in the region, in the Asian region. And also then within Europe, Germany has been very successful at getting its cars and getting its chemicals into the Chinese market, and French companies have not been as successful as that, and definitely France wants to boost that. So it's really looked for the sort of the weak points within the European framework and is working on those.
Just a quick thing on France. The community is commenting on it. Ted Wang, for example, saying the only independent country in Europe is France, I think. And there is a particular question for you, Clifford. Maybe you want to answer it as the conversation progresses, or now briefly. It's from Sean Rice, and it's for you, Clifford, saying, while the question is EU relations with China, the issue seems complicated by the fact that each country in the EU seems to be pursuing its own diplomacy. And this perhaps goes to the point of driving a wedge and a masterclass in strategy. Maybe you want to address this very briefly and then we can move on?
Yeah, I think they definitely identified the weak points, and the fact that we had Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, visiting there recently with a large trade delegation of German car makers and other industrial groups. That didn't, whatever about he said it was there to help to try and push for Chinese support against the war in Ukraine. But ultimately, a lot of it was about selling German products to the Chinese, and that was certainly the optics of the visit. And the optics are very important with these messages because, as we've just seen with the dancing in
the snow, the optics are bad. So these things are very important. And so I think the question is correct. I think that China has spotted that Europe doesn't really know what to do. It's come up with this vague strategy of de-risking, which Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commissioner, has been pushing, which is not about decoupling, but about reducing the risk of exposure to China. But at the same time, everyone's going their own path, and China is very happy to sow this dissent because ultimately the big prize is always going to be Europe as it stands versus in relation to the US, because the US is the world's biggest power. Thank you very much, Clifford, and thank you for being with us for all of this. And you mentioned Ursula von der Leyen, who we're going to come to in a moment. But first of all, let me bring on our first guest, who is very kindly joining us down the line. And it is Teresa Fallon. Hi, Teresa. Thank you very much for joining us. She's director of the Centre for Russia, Europe, Asia Studies, also known as CRIAS. I think that's how you pronounce it. And before we start talking, let's just listen to Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, who seemed to be pretty strong or have a very strong message for China when it comes to trade and the fact that China seems to certainly have the upper hand when it comes to goods in Europe. So let's just listen to what she had to say.
Chinese subsidized products, these subsidized products such as the electric vehicles or, for example, steel, are flooding the European market. At the same time, China continues to massively support its manufacturing sector, and this combined with a domestic demand that is not increasing, the world cannot absorb China's surplus production.
So strong words there from Ursula von der Leyen, using that word flooding. And it is true to say, isn't it, that there is this huge trade deficit between the EU and China. I was reading that it's 291 billion euros in 2023. So I'd love to get your take on this, Teresa. Do you think that Ursula von der Leyen, that the EU, are they panicking or are they now really trying to push back?
Well, I think that over the years, they've always asked for the same things, a level playing field, and it's just repeating the same thing over and over again. But now we see this dramatic trade deficit. And over the last 10 years, the EU has prepared a special toolbox to protect their own economy. And now the China challenge is so massive for them that sanctions are really on the table. So, about 2005, we saw bra wars. So this kind of negotiations that were going on about textiles coming into Europe. Fast forward about 15 years later, we're talking about car wars. Yeah. So the dramatic rise of Chinese manufacturing has really affected Europe. And they, in addition to that, China published about 10 years ago, Made in China 2025, and they laid out very clearly all the areas that they were going to work on. And one of them was electric vehicles. So my question is, why didn't the EU prepare sooner for this? Now we have ports filled with cars, Chinese cars waiting to enter the market, and no one's sure what will happen to those because they're debating about what type of sanctions or issues will be put on. Will be a 10%, 15% tariff.
Do you think that those? Do you think they will follow through with those tariffs? I know they're threatening huge amounts, up to 50% or so, but do you think they would actually follow through and do that to China?
See, that's the issue. You mentioned 50%. Well, I don't think they have the will to put up 50%. The 50% tariff is the only way, because the Chinese cars are so low priced that is the only way it would make a difference. So now they're talking about maybe 10 or 15%. So it's not really going to have as much of an effect. So will they have the bravery to use this toolbox is the first question. And we saw with the recent meeting in Paris, Chancellor Scholz, he had a kind of a meeting inside a public restaurant with Macron, but he refused to go to the meetings with Xi and Macron. So I think that that's a symbol of, or a sign of, the breakage in the traditional Franco-German engine, that they're on different sides of the debate on this. And Macron did what every European leader loves to do. He had to have a positive relationship with Xi Jinping, and he let Ursula von der Leyen do all the dirty work and talk about sanctions and so he was just the nice guy, and she had to do all the dirty work. And we've seen this happen over the years. This is what the EU structures. It's handy for European leaders to blame everything on Brussels.
Teresa Biresche, it's good to see you again. And because people are writing in questions and observations in the chat, I just want to sort of bring them to you. There is an observation from Ted Wang, a user. He's saying,
That's something I can put into my game.
Most people...
Saying like politics, there could be, if I introduce like politics to my game, there could be like the good cop, bad cop scenario, like they have, like they described.
See EU as partner, not rival. On the other end of it, you have a question from Alien from Zeta B. Oh, that's the username. And the question is this: has Europe given up on China democratizing, or do they care only about trade?
Oh, two excellent questions. Thank you for those. The first question, I think, refers to the 2019 EU white paper that referred to China as a partner, a systemic rival, and a competitor. And so this is like a three-basket approach, which in 2019 seemed, like a really big deal, but it's really kind of a fudge. So it means China is all things. And Beijing has tried very hard to remove the systemic rival language. They're not happy with that. And I think that trying to compartmentalize their relationship with China, saying economics are in one basket, China's not happy with this. They use their leverage wherever they can. And, this is Brussels' attempt. There are many people calling for an update on all of this, but no one wants to rock the boat too much in member state capitals. In regard to the
introduce factions, clans, and resources, and politics will introduce themselves.
That's
True,
a very good
very
question.
true.
I mean, Europe is always talking about their values and how that's so important for all of them. But we've seen, for example, Volkswagen built a car manufacturing plant in Xinjiang. There have been questions about forced labor in these supply chains. And even at the European Parliament and institutions, they were really dragging their feet on having actual legislation on forced labor laws. Now, if you compare that to the United States, forced labor laws are part of their DNA because of their history. So in the 1930s, there's no, they do not allow things to be imported that are under forced labor. So Europe has been kind of dragging their feet on that, but I think eventually it got over the hump. So they have a very different approach. And I think that no one is under any illusion any longer, at least in my perception.
God, I hate
that
retoping
they have
horns.
an ability
What
to
a
promote democracy in China. So I think the
Cock-ass.
bigger, more wide-ranging question is, how do we deal with these illiberal countries like Russia and China in the current world order? That's our biggest challenge
It
right
looks
now.
so messy,
I just
but
want
I
to
mean,
bring it back to
like it works.
something that
So
Clifford
I guess it
mentioned
works.
earlier, which is that Xi Jinping's one of his main aims is really to divide Europe. And you mentioned there, you were talking about Germany, so we don't have to even go very far from France, its neighbour Germany, and the more cosy relationship Scholz seemed to have had, certainly on his visit to China in the past few weeks. I'd just like to get your views about that, and just how you see it playing out, for example, with Germany. Chancellor Scholz, very keen to make sure that German business is always protected and is not threatened at all by any of these talks of probes or tariffs, etc.
I I could have used zero
Well,
measure?
Germany is quite an interesting situation. It's the biggest economy in Europe, and their most important trade partner
Nah.
for several years now is
I mean, I
Germany,
could, but it
is
wouldn't.
China. So it's Germany's #1 trade
I don't
partner.
think it would have
But
been
if
a
you look at the
good idea.
statistics and figures, it's declining. Volkswagen isn't making as much profits in China. And China had a very smart strategy when they approached Germany. And if you look at the history, when you had Eastern, when Germany was divided, Eastern Germany actually had built a gigantic factory in China. They had already these types of relations that went back a long time ago. And so I think when China was looking to build up their economy, they turned to Germany, and they have ties with 5 major groups, I would say. So the automotive sector, the chemical sector with BASF, and Siemens. So I'll just make it 3, just to keep it simple.
And let me
So
just,
I think
and let me just, sorry, let me interrupt you briefly there, because I know that Dustin has got quite an interesting graph that we can show, which compares, well, he can talk about it, but it compares Germany in exports with China compared to other European countries. I think we can just bring that up and very briefly just explain what we're seeing when we see that graph.
Zero measure
Hopefully
is
it's
tempting,
on, we
but
can see it.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically illustrating
it's
what
not
Teresa
gonna
is saying here,
produce
right?
the kind of
this
topology
shows
you want.
how. So this is showing exports in relation to
too
each
high
country's
poly.
GDP. So it's kind of it doesn't depend on like the
Won't be
size
very
of the economy. It's
optimized.
like relative to how big the economy is, the exports. You can see how it's really in the
And it
It's the
wouldn't
top.
late
follow
2000s.
the
So yeah,
silhouette
the orange
as well
is
as
Germany.
manually
Blue is the
regrouping.
EU in general. France is green. You can see UK in red and Italy in yellow. And really, the top line is sort of looking at. And you can see the late 2000s, like how a big part of the German economy became like of the German exports became China focused. And even, in like 2009, 2010, 2011, when we had like a financial crisis, you can see how this is actually going up. So basically, Germany was securing its stance in European economies.
And Teresa, that makes sense with what you were just talking about with some of those big industries that have really been focusing on China.
So they've kind of carefully cultivated these larger industries, and they do the lobbying for China. They have the chancellor's ear. So a lot of policy at the EU level, because of the size of Germany and the importance that China has on their economy, a lot of the policy is really based from Berlin. So we see that their input really kind of literally drives EU policy. So now we're seeing maybe some difficulties in all of that because of other competing interests. But overall, Germany has had a big say in how things were run. And Angela Merkel, I mean, we saw in the past, for example, with the solar industry about 10 years ago, the Chinese officials didn't go to Brussels. They went to Berlin to discuss these types of things. So, there's also a bit of a turf war going on here. And since then, the toolbox, the European Commission, they really have a big say in economic issues. So we're going to see how this all plays out. But I'm seeing some tensions in regard to turf. And Ursula von der Leyen is German. She's a former German defense minister. And she owes her job to Macron. So now we're coming up to the elections in June, and she went with him to Paris. But I will be curious how this plays out, because there's no guarantee she's going to have her job. I think it's very likely, but there could be some pressure on her as well.
There's some interesting takes coming on the relationship between China and EU, and I just want to sort of bring that in so that we have it on our radar in our discussions. So there is Ted Wang again saying there are tons of European products sold in China. EU-China relationship should be mutual benefit. And then there is another user with a with Chinese characteristics, with Chinese characters that I cannot read. I will just read out the comment saying China need EU to be a strong polar in multipolar era, not just a follower of US. I'm sure this is a point that we're going to discuss. And just one last comment from username Bida saying China's choice was aimed to bring together France, the most important EU country, with the pro-China countries like Serbia and Hungary, create a strong China-friendly EU axis, France, Hungary, and Serbia. Just so it's there in the discussion.
Throwing that into the conversation.
That's fantastic. I'll pick up on the last point. We should keep in mind that Serbia is not a member of the EU, although they're very pro China and Russia. And they still, I was looking at figures, I think this budget period, they're getting 571 million for possible accession. I think Serbia, the figures, they were much closer to European accession several years ago than they are now. And that's largely due to Chinese investments kind of pulling them away from the acquis, the rules that run the EU. So Serbia is kind of moving further away from Europe. But I agree with the comments that Xi Jinping is very interested in how things look. And, I tease some French colleagues that, oh, wow, you're in the same basket as Hungary and Serbia. They're not happy to hear that, right? But that's how Xi Jinping sees it.
I just like
So they don't put in that basket. But the other thing we should keep in mind as well, and it's very clear, the Chinese make no bones about it, their strategy is to divide the transatlantic alliance. So anything that is divisive or to throw wedges where there's any openings, that's what they try to do. And in the recent spy case with the Belgian former senator, it was on the Ministry of State Security was corresponding via phone messages, and it was kind of, we've always suspected that. We've also heard that in closed-door events from Chinese officials, but actually seeing it on a message like, our goal is to divide Europe from the US. So, that's really clear that's what they're trying to do here.
And that brings us on to a very interesting topic in itself, doesn't it? The whole issue of security. And you mentioned about dividing Europe from the US. Of course, we had Macron previously calling for more strategic autonomy and less reliance on the US. This must play very nicely into what President Xi and the Chinese want.
Well, I think that statement, it's a perennial French call since de Gaulle. But I think others talk about strategic responsibility. What the US needs is a more responsible Europe. They have been taking a holiday from history for the last 30 years and haven't really spent enough on their own defense. So I think the US would welcome a more countries that will spend more on their defense. So we've seen with the invasion of Ukraine, over 2 years into the war now, it is starting to improve.
I must have
Poland
clicked
has
on a
spending a lot
news
because
live
they're on the
stream.
front line.
Hey,
But
Chris,
there's
how's
still
it
many
going?
member states that aren't even reaching the 2%.
I just don't
that
want
we
to
had
keep
promised
listening to
over,
Asmongold. Like,
decade
God,
ago. So at the so I
there's
think
too
that
much
I think
Asmongold.
the U.S. everyone would like Europe to have more developed defense industry and an ability to defend themselves, as we see that it's even hard for them to send artillery shells.
But
to
it must
Ukraine.
work
You
in
guys are
China's
stuck
favour,
with
surely,
DW
that you've even
News
got
for now.
the president of France saying very boldly that, look, there needs to be more of a division from the US. You've just talked about China trying to, divide the transatlantic
Kind of
alliance.
weird.
Well, that's true. We saw very clearly when Macron visited Xi Jinping in China, and he went there saying, "I'm going there
He makes
to
it
talk
funny.
to him, to use his influence to help stop the war in Russia's war in Ukraine." And he left with the bumper sticker saying, "We don't want to be a vassal of the United States."
Yeah.
So for a while,
Do you have any new
with
videos
the
I can
initial
watch?
invasion of Ukraine, there was no talk
How
about strategic
Instagram
autonomy
changed
because
women
everyone
forever.
realized that NATO.
We'll pause the news. We'll listen to Asmongold talk about how Instagram changed women forever.
If one trend of 2023 shows how far we've fallen, it was the Barbie
I
Botox.
need a Zed
Named after the
reacts.
toy's signature long neck, the procedure spread like wildfire on Instagram after the release of the film.
Fairlane is,
A
like,
series of
into
injections
Instagram.
to the trapezius muscles in
That-
the
that
neck
is, like,
renders them
her
unable
thing.
to contract, which lowers your shoulders and makes your neck look slightly longer.
Oh.
Despite the
Wait,
risk
what?
of muscle paralysis and severe pain, thousands of people rushed out to get this hot new treatment. But
Yeah, of
this
course.
is a very recent phenomenon. No one did this in the past. No movie made people do this kind of
Plastic
thing.
surgery.
And that's when you realize that the Barbie Botox is just the tip of a massive
Bro, what are you doing, man? Why are you doing this?
iceberg, a trend that's hiding behind the
Oh, have you guys seen that that trending song? It's called "Magnetic" by Illicit or Illict. Illicit is like illegal. I don't know what Illict means though. I think it's just it doesn't even mean anything. Yeah, it's actually pretty good.
surface.
You
You
like
see, the
K-pop?
plastic surgery industry has been booming for
You can have a
years,
video
with
in the
people
corner.
on
why.
Instagram and TikTok. Invasive procedures
Uh,
go in and out
well,
of fashion every
Yeah.
month.
It
As a
feels
young,
weird to,
impressionable
like,
audience
react.
goes from
I
one
feel like it's, like,
insecurity to
stealing
another,
people's
fed
content,
to them
so I
by
don't
Instagram's algorithm.
really do
Meanwhile,
it.
celebrities and influencers work
But
hand in
again,
hand
like,
with the industry.
I'm
making
reacting to
promotional
Asmongold, who
posts and
does steal
boasting
other
about
Yeah,
people's
a lot of
content.
content creators, like this is kind of
So
like
it's like
a thing
stealing
that a lot
from
of people might
thieves
not
in a
know
way.
about. But a lot of content creators actually get basically sponsorships with like plastic surgery places, and like this even happens in Korea and stuff too. Obviously,
Really
happens in
wanted to
Korea
like
because they're like
do a
really big in
nose
the
job.
plastic
I've
surgery
been
in South
convincing
Korea.
her to tell her that
And
her
so like
nose
they'll
looks
go over
beautiful,
there
she
and
doesn't
have
need
some
a
shit
nose
done
job.
on them, and then they'll promote the place that they have it done, and so it's like kind of
All I
it's a
listen to is
win-win for
anime
them.
Their
OSTs and
procedures
traditional
and
Chinese
results.
folk
As new
songs.
procedures dip in and out of fashion, influencers target people's mental weaknesses and make a fortune.
Yeah, I'll
drumming
link
up
it to
brands
you
in the
guys.
industry. And now that plastic surgery is growing fastest among young adults looking to replicate the inhuman perfection they see on the app, it's time we really expose how
There you go.
Instagram is quite literally changing the face of the
This has
world.
been pretty
And the
viral
ti-
on
Well, it is,
Instagram.
and also another thing
on
is
the, on
that
the grams.
oh, one thing that people might not understand is that like what the difference between camera lenses are. For example, like how many of you guys have taken a picture, you've like looked in the mirror and you've like, oh, I look good. And then you take a picture with your phone and you say, wow, actually, you know what? Never mind. I look like a fucking ogre. Like it happens a lot, right? Why does
It only
that
happens
happen?
with Asmongold.
It happens because of the camera lens. But people just don't know about that. Wide angle isn't flattering. Yeah, no, it's not generally, right? And so that's the thing. But people don't know about that because it's like a camera tech thing. So a lot of this, a lot of the fucked up things that people get into, they get into those things because they're just simply naive.
Okay,
I'm
this is
a
like
But they
really
just don't know
weird.
what they're talking about.
We
Possible
gotta
to
fix
predict
this.
the
This is
rise of
not good.
Instagram.
It's like
into one of the
especially bad for
great.
like girls with big noses, right? Because like a camera
delete all
lens,
of this.
like a phone camera lens, will like emphasize that a lot.
Whoops.
That's why girls hate,
Not
you know, like there's a
all
lot
of
of girls now that like get nose surgery.
Oh my
biggest
fucking
social
God,
media
dude.
apps in the
Where's it
world.
connected?
But looking back, it's easy to see that all the right ingredients were there for massive success. It all goes down to the founders Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger. The pair originally met while studying at Stanford, and even before they had started their careers, they were being headhunted by the big names in tech. Kevin Systrom even turned down an internship at Facebook to spend time studying photography in Italy. Kevin would go on to intern at Odeo, a small app which would later become Twitter. And afterwards, he would then get headhunted by Google and worked there for 2 years.
Good for
And
him.
even after a short time in the industry, Kevin was frustrated. He had just been passed up for a promotion and was sick of the
Ooh.
culture of the company and went against all the original ideas of Silicon Valley. Kevin wanted to fully throw himself into a creative idea and exploit an opening in the market by building something of his own. Kevin knew his old college friend
Where
Mike
is the
was just
seam
as
again?
ambitious as he
It's like
was,
here?
and so he thought he would explain his vision for a new app, something he would tell Forbes in an interview
Okay.
a few years later. Mike Krieger and I created Instagram because we wanted a way to communicate visually. We realized that we'd be taking all these photos with our iPhones that would sit on our camera roll, and it felt like they should be seen, not necessarily because they were good photos, but because a photo that no one sees isn't really that interesting.
Well, that's another big reason is that like before we had Instagram, you really had like, I mean, you had like Photo Bucket, like and a few other like random websites.
Oh God.
But the problem is that there wasn't really a following feature. So the big
figure out how to
reason
put a
why,
window
at
in
least
the
like how
bottom
many
left.
of you guys
I know how to
have
do
an
it, but,
Instagram,
like-
but you've never posted a picture on Instagram? Yeah, Flickr. Yeah, a lot of people, right? And so what do you use Instagram for? You use Instagram as like, it's like a
It's just
Pokedex
not something I
for
wanna do.
girls. And so that's the way I use Instagram. I have a few posts on there I make since I make
If you
content.
guys want to
know,
like
it's like every once in a
actually
while I'll
watch
do
the
that.
video, you
But
guys can
when
go
was the last
look
time
it
I
up.
made a post on Instagram? Let me go and look and see.
Obviously,
for
do
myself.
what you want, you can
Let's
boost numbers.
see. How do I even
That's
open up my
not something I care
I
about.
made a post
actually,
in March
like when I
8th
say
of
like, oh my God, I
and
watch
it
my
says,
likes.
I took this before I went to dairy.
I watch my likes like what like I like, keep track of my likes, my views. That's just a joke. I actually don't really care. The main goal here, right, is to create a game. It's not to create a YouTube channel. That's entertaining, anyway.
Dairy Queen. So that was over a year ago. But I go on Instagram every single day. It's crazy.
photo you take communicates something about a moment in time. A brief
There's some
slice of
really
time
good
of where you
recipes
were,
on
who you were with,
Instagram.
and
Just-
what
I
you
just like
were.
looking at
And funnily
food and,
enough,
like-
their idea would
and,
prove
like,
to be one of the most
and, like,
lucrative
dogs and
ideas of
stuff.
the 21st century. Kevin and Mike immediately got to work on Instagram.
I don't
pouring
post
everything
anything on
they had into
Instagram.
this
I just,
new
like,
app, and then
browse.
just
Yeah, like back
what
then,
other
like you
people are
didn't
posting.
have like because Facebook was the only other platform you had. And like with a lot of these like people that you want to follow, like you want to follow some hot girl, like you don't want to see like her talking about like what she thinks about Obama. Like shut the fuck up. Like I just want to look at the pictures.
You
And so
entertain
like
me.
Instagram like
Jeez.
filled the need
That's
that people
a-
didn't have then.
2 weeks, they'd
Just
already
being
secured
You're easily entertained then,
$500,000
I
of funding
guess.
from investors,
Yeah.
and were starting to get it ready to launch to the public. But it
Don't
still
know what to
wasn't
say.
easy. It took the pair a year of work to get everything ready, but they still weren't prepared for what would happen next. Now, there was plenty of interest in the app, and they could tell this from the demos. And so as soon as they launched the app, within just the first week, Instagram had gained over 100,000 users
Oh
in
yeah, people love
2010.
this.
This was
and
the
also another reason why is because Instagram didn't require you to put in all of your personal information, and by 2010, this is almost 2011, people had begun to distrust Facebook and were becoming worried about giving their personal information, whereas like Instagram was just like you make an account, you post photos, and that's it. So like at the time, Instagram was like uniquely poised to be an incredible value for like a user.
highest amount of users gained for any single social media app in history. The service for the app and the infrastructure wasn't enough to keep up with the massive influx of users. The new company
What does
that
that
barely had
mean?
anyone
Water from
working for us
Mississippi?
had already far exceeded expectations, and
That's
so
a
they
lot
would
of
have
people. I
to
haven't
invest
heard that
tons back
expression
in just to
before.
keep the app functional,
Mhm.
with back-end tweets and more processing power. And so the first year was just a mad rush to keep up with the user base, with Kevin and Mike sacrificing everything in their lives to keep it afloat. But just when they thought they had gotten on top of the growth, there would be more crashes and more problems to deal with. But as time went on and they streamlined the process, their hard work was richly rewarded. You see, investors saw this
That's
and
a good
knew they
chart.
had to get a piece of the pie. In less than 2 months after its launch, the app already hit 1 million
Probably a
users,
chart for, like,
and Instagram
homelessness.
was injected with $7 million of investor funding, particularly through System Silicon Valley
That's a lot.
connections. And users just loved how you could make your photos look so much better than other apps like Facebook. And the key
Yeah,
here
they had like the built-in filters. I forgot all about that. Yeah, the filters in Instagram, and this was like something that happened in like 2011. I feel like by
What's with that face,
2014 or
Rusty? Why
15,
are you
people kind of
disappointed
moved
in
away
it?
from putting like the heavy filters on. But in like 2012 and 2013, it was very common that people would like super filter their,
You're giving me
their
the-
content and have like
the
2 or 3 filters
disappointed
on it or shit
face.
like that. Yeah.
was filters.
Like different color
Brought in
grading,
relatively
etc.
early on to make up for the poor quality of smartphone cameras at the time, the introduction
Yeah.
of various photo filters would prove revolutionary. With the touch of a button, users could iron out their wrinkles, cover up any blemishes,
Yep.
and transform their mundane experiences into picturesque moments. What was meant as a simple fix for the lacking technology of the time took on a life of its own. Filters gave Instagram an air of perfection and artistic expression that transcended the dull, boring
Let me see if I have a single filter photo. I do, but this is one that somebody sent to me, so it's like I'm not really sure if that really counts. Oh no, I think I have another. Yeah, I've done it twice. Other than that, no.
photos your relatives
The
were
J
posting on
Schlatt filter?
Facebook at
No.
the time. Although Kevin and Mike could never have foresaw what they
J
had really
Schlatt
created
filter.
and how this would be used in the future. But at the same time that Kevin and Mike were building the photo app of the future, something else was going on.
Uh-oh.
Other people were laying the groundwork for an entirely different way to push past the limits of natural beauty. Now, if you're
Uh-oh.
going to blame anyone for the massive rise in plastic surgery, then you'd have to talk about people like the Kardashians. They were unique among celebrities at the time because they truly offered nothing except for their image and their lifestyle. Coming to fame in 2007 after
That wasn't new. Like Paris Hilton did that before. Like Paris Hilton walked so Kim Kardashian could run. Like, am I the only person that remembers all of the Paris Hilton shows in like the 2000s? What are we talking about? This is nothing special with Kim Kardashian. Yeah, they were friends. Yeah, I know.
viral sex tape, Kim and the gang went on to
I
hold
never
their
understood
fulfillments of
the
fame and
obsession
stretched it
around
out
Kim
over
Kardashian.
multiple decades. Kim and her family's signature look exploded onto modern
Yeah.
culture and still has an effect on beauty standards today. The modern world's obsession with full lips, big butts, and stenciled eyebrows is in large part thanks to them. Of course, the image they sold to the world so easily didn't really bear any relation to reality. First, as you can probably guess, there's all the cosmetic surgeries and procedures they've gone through to get there. Then countless layers of makeup, professional photography, and Photoshop are added on. And out of thousands of those photos, only a select few are chosen to be shown to the public. Before
Yeah,
the
but if you're like a 12-year-old girl and you don't understand any of that because you're stupid because you're a 12-year-old girl, you're gonna see a picture of Kim
Because you're a
Kardashian
12-year-old
or
girl.
like I don't know any of the other ones really. But like you're gonna see a picture of one of them and you're gonna be like, well, I don't look like that. I guess I
Asmon's
should
gonna
kill
get
myself.
canceled again.
That's what happens. It is because they're stupid. They don't know the difference. And also, this happens with guys too, right? It like I mean, girls. I think it's worse with girls. It is, but like for guys, it's still a problem.
rise of social media, this kind of deception was only available to the rich and famous. Even their own influence alone has a huge effect on the cosmetic surgery industry. When a 17-year-old Kylie Jenner boasted of getting lip fillers to achieve her signature look, online searches for the procedure went up by over 3,000%. The so-called Brazilian butt lift.
That is nuts. Getting that shit at 17 years old? Oh my God. For guys, it's a bit different. Yeah, I mean, obviously for girls and guys, it's different, but this is nuts. Like, I would even say that for guys. Like, the problem is that, like, if you're a girl, like, yeah, you can get fit, but, like, a lot of the different things that, like, girls don't like about the way they look are, like, intrinsic things, like how big their boobs are. Or, like, you know, like the way their face looks, or, like, their chin or their nose. Where it's like, guys, I would say, like, 90% of guys, if you work out and you're in good shape, that's pretty much all you really need to do. Just do that. And you know, like, take care of yourself a little bit. Just do that.
Procedures.
I feel like guys have like a, you know, it's like it's easier and harder, right? Because like working out is a lot harder than just going to like a place and then having them, you know, cut part of your nose off, for example. But at the same time, you don't have to do that. I'd rather not have somebody do that to me.
Kim and her family. The procedure involves a surgeon taking fat deposits from elsewhere on the body and then transferring them to the buttocks.
By the way, this is actually one of the most dangerous surgeries. Brazilian butt lifts are actually, I think it's like, I don't know like what the percentage, I heard it was like 2.5% or something like that, of them could be fatal, but I think that could also be wrong. But it's a very, very high percentage.
You need to like
in 2018, the amount of butt lift.
What's this BBL Drizzy? What is, I keep seeing this. I don't know what it is. What is that? It's a Drake versus Kendrick thing? Yeah, no, I know that. But like, it's a long story. Okay, got it.
Has risen by
what
over
is going on with the
250%.
Drake versus Kendrick?
Over time,
I've
though,
been seeing
the
it on
procedure
Reddit.
fades away.
Apparently,
and the
there's been
results
shots
disappear,
since
regular
then. It
procedures.
sounds
In a lot of cases, yeah, that's true. Like, I know a number of
What
girls
the
that have
heck?
had some of this stuff done. And
I guess
honestly,
this is America, so it's to be expected.
I would never do this shit. Like, I'm gonna be real. Like, I even like that's the reason why I didn't even want to get a hair transplant. Like, even that was a bit too much for me. Like, that's scary. But yeah, this shit is extremely common. Like, there's a ton of girls that do OnlyFans that get this all the time. It is nuts whenever I see how much this is. It's a nickname Drizzy has for Drake. Oh, I see. Kendrick says he has Brazilian butt lift as latest diss song. That's funny.
Procedures are required to keep it up. Even the Kardashians themselves regretted the procedure in the end, with Kim recently admitting that she'd stopped having her top-ups. The procedure is massively popular, but also incredibly risky compared to other cosmetic surgery. When it goes wrong, people can get nasty infections and sometimes require surgery to remove the implants. Or if
the reason why also is because like the recovery process for this, I know a lot about this. The recovery process for this is like a matter of like a good number of months where you literally cannot sit down
Asmund knows a lot
and you
about
have
this.
to like sleep on your stomach and shit like that.
How does
It
he
is
know so much
crazy
about
the
this
amount of things that you
procedure?
need to do in order for this to actually work. It's fucked up. Yeah, it is.
that gets into the bloodstream, it can actually cause embolisms and blockages to vital
pills for the butts,
organs.
yeah,
One in
exactly.
every
Weeks, not months.
4,000 people
Is it
die
weeks,
as a
yeah.
result of the complications, which is what led to the UK banning it in 2018. Eventually, they reversed the decision in 2022 after bringing in new safety regulations, but there's still a whole world of unlicensed practitioners performing a different version of the procedure.
Oh
While
my
they're not allowed
God.
to perform the surgical version with the potentially fatal side effects, they're still allowed to blindly inject people with artificial substances. It's not like the UK's ban really did anything anyway. The people who were determined enough to get it done were freely able
Yeah,
to
they just go somewhere
abroad
else.
to places like Turkey or Mexico,
Yep.
where the procedure is completely legal
And it's
often
also a lot
mostly
cheaper.
unregulated and far cheaper. Even today, there's countless adverts for this.
There's a lot of girls that go to
Go.
South Korea for it too, for obvious reasons.
all over Facebook and Instagram. But nothing has promoted plastic surgery and made the world more plastic and fake than it's ever been, like Instagram. The Kardashians might have remained in the background for most people, ending up as has-been stars like so many before them. But instead, their recipe for success based on their looks and their status alone was about to go global.
Well, it's because they're hot. Like, that's the reason why.
Really?
I mean, like, what are we talking about? That's obviously the reason why. Like, duh. Like,
That was all
Wait.
thanks to Instagram. But how did an innocent photo sharing website become
Or they
a
don't? A
money-making
lot of people
machine
think
it is
so.
today?
Yeah, maybe you
The
might not,
answer
but a lot
is
of people
Mark
do.
Zuckerberg. You see, Zuck's vision for a social media business was a lot different compared to Kevin Systrom or Mike Krieger.
Yeah.
While they were thinking about how to make money from people's photos, Mark was interested in
Data.
commodifying the people instead. Even before Mark started Facebook, he had already demonstrated his true feelings towards his users. While
By
he's
the way, Mark Zuckerberg called people who handed over their data dumb fucks. Okay.
I remember that.
Based. True and based and real. He was right. He was fucking right.
rejected that the film The Social Network was true in his account of his website FaceMash.
Right, like they just can't wrap their head around the idea that someone might build something because they like building things.
The evidence shows that it wasn't that far off. Articles from Harvard newspapers show how he plundered Harvard's registers for pictures of people's faces. He then used these to create a website where people could rank each other on attractiveness, while the backend.
I mean, like, is this really supposed to be like some kind of fucking expose? A college guy made a website to rate girls? It's the right one, by the way. This one's way hotter. It's obvious. Is this really? Yeah, it's 2, right? Yeah, 100%. Like, what do you mean?
It's gonna get
secretly
cancelled
assigned them
again.
their own rating out of 10.
Yeah,
While
duh.
it was quickly shut down, the stunt informed the future development of Facebook to a
Cancelled
massive
for the
degree.
99th
Facebook did the
time.
same thing in turning its users into the product, just in a more sinister way. It was all about maximizing engagement for users, whilst plundering all the possible data they could find, and then selling this to advertisers and giving them easy targets for their campaigns was the final step in the profit machine. Whilst these weren't new ideas, Zuckerberg perfected them at Facebook. A combination of aggressive data hoarding and addictive design practices turned Facebook into one of the biggest companies in the planet, almost overnight. But already by the early 2010s, and Zuckerberg
Well, people really liked Facebook. Facebook was a huge improvement over MySpace. MySpace was such trash. Like, the website, like, you would go onto people's profiles and you wouldn't know where anything was because of the, like, all the different, like, applications and things on there, like the HTML customized stuff. It was bad.
knew deep down that Facebook would be on the way out at the end of the decade, as he was failing to capture the next generation and was losing out to younger, more organic apps like Instagram. Meanwhile, things weren't amazing at Instagram either. Sure, growth was solid and the business was doing well, but after 2 years of grinding away, Kevin and Mike were sick of doing it alone. Now, they had built up a team by this point, but it was always an uphill struggle to keep up with the growth of the app. Some sort of merger or acquisition would put an end to these troubles. It would give them all the investments they needed, with the added bonus of the infrastructure to push Instagram to the next level. So after turning down a few other suitors, Kevin and Mike sold the company almost entirely to Mark Zuckerberg.
This reminds me of, like, remember what idiot bought Tumblr for $1 billion? Man, like, I mean, because Facebook really made a good call with this, right? This is a very good decision. Bro, yeah, they bought it for $1 billion. Then they banned porn. It's like, wait a minute. That's like buying McDonald's and saying it's going to be vegan only. What the hell is the point?
In 2012.
Americans share photos on Instagram. A company with only 13 employees bought today by Facebook for $1 billion.
Damn.
At first, it seemed like they made the right choice.
They
Kevin and
really
Mike were still
buy
selling
Instagram
the
for
product,
$1
and they were
billion.
free to grow the app
Yeah, they're
however
good.
they wanted. And through the intelligent use of their new resources,
Wow,
Instagram had
what a
exploded
buy.
in popularity. Within a year, they hit 50 million users, then 100 million a few months afterwards. But this all came at a cost, because it wasn't long before Mark came in to slowly force the founders out along with their original principles, allowing Facebook to make changes to the app and its business model forever. In 2014, Facebook pushed for changes to the data hoarding practices, making the app use Facebook's invasive tactics. A year later, they gave advertisers far more power.
I never connected my Instagram with Facebook, as far as I know. I never did it. Because I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want people to see what I'm doing on Instagram or see what I'm doing on Facebook. Like, yeah, I never did that. Like, the only reason, like, I used to go on Instagram without an account. And then, like, they made it to where you had to have an account to look at people's pictures. And so then I made an account after that. Accidentally share something on Facebook. I never had that happen, but yeah.
the app, letting them run 30-second adverts and buying products directly
Guys, I
through
think
the app,
Asmongold uses
compromising your personal
Instagram
information
to,
and data security
look
with
at
the new
naked
hands
girls.
I think
of
advertisements were
Zuckerberg,
fine.
notorious
Not a
for
big deal.
exploiting all of your information
scroll
and
through.
using it against you. That's why while you're exploring services like Instagram, every sign-up or interaction might expose you to potential spam, scams, or identity theft. But imagine navigating these apps like Instagram with complete control of your personal information.
Yep.
What happened to my internet? Oh, no. Oh,
That's probably the best
oh
advertiser
okay.
I've
Never
ever
mind. My
seen.
internet was
I'm gonna
fine.
be honest. Like
It's my
that was
add-on
actually a
sponsor
W ad.
block.
Most
It was just
insidious
blocking
changes
the
that happened
sponsorship.
since
Rare to say
Zuckerberg
that.
took over
It is,
Instagram
yeah.
were far more subtle. In 2014,
$10,
Instagram
yeah.
added a whole suite of different editing tools. The app went from a place to post filtered pictures of your real life into a
Ooh.
showroom for the best looking
This
photos of
guy's
yourself
blue
you could
cat
possibly
grass is
create. By 2016, they made it so algorithms would
I
decide
mean-
what photos the app would show you. Instead of giving you a timeline of the photos that your friends had posted, Instagram would only show what it thought you
I
would
don't
engage
judge him
with the
for it,
most,
like,
Yeah.
laying the groundwork for
I
the
do the
addictive
same
design
thing,
Facebook
but,
had already mastered.
like, I use
When
them for
Facebook began
references
pushing
for
location
artwork.
tracking, it was the final straw for Kevin and Mike. They hated the direction the app was taking. They saw that Zuckerberg was using their app as a machine that turned people's addictions into a weapon against humanity. They thought
Oh my
I think
god,
that,
that's
like, I mean, the
scary.
location
Weapon
tracking,
against
it's
humanity.
like not necessarily a bad thing, but like it shouldn't be on by default. That's what a lot of the problems are, is that whenever these things have these like massive like privacy invasion things that are like, hey, by the way, this is on by default, but you can turn it off. But if you want to do that, you have to go through 8 different menus and then call customer support.
I bet
That's the
Mark
problem.
Zuckerberg knows where my
Like, I
toilet
think
is
it's fine.
in
Like,
my
for
house.
example, like, because if you're visiting a new city or something like that, and it's like, hey, you know, like there's an ad for like this place that's nearby, I don't think it's that big of a deal, right? It's really not, and it can be okay, but it should not be on by a default.
Okay, this looks
that Zuck's
good
push
for
for maximum
now.
engagement would lead to some of the worst problems that we see today in
We'll do a
society.
test bake, see
the
how it turned
environment
out.
on Instagram was now constant competition to get
Uh,
the most followers and the
let's
most
finish
likes
it
on your
first, though.
photo.
Obviously it's not
Always having to
done.
look the best you possibly could for the algorithm, with the aid of Instagram's inbuilt Photoshop. Unlike the founders, Zuckerberg didn't care at all that the problems on the app would soon spill over into society.
Yep.
As long as it kept making him billions, it didn't matter.
Yep.
Eventually in late 2018, Kevin and Mike gave up fighting against the tide and just decided to leave the company entirely, leaving Mark Zuckerberg free to fully realize his plans for Instagram.
I don't really feel that bad about that for those guys. Like, I really don't. The reason why is that, like, whenever you sold it to the Facebook guy, you knew what Facebook was. I bet both of those guys had Facebook. And, like, they had all of this intrusive data collection on Facebook. And now it's like, oh, wow, I can't believe this is happening to us. What a surprise. Of course it was going to happen. Why do you think he gave you $1 billion?
And this has had an awful effect
Come
on
on.
society ever since. You see, plastic surgery was still a niche industry up until this point. It was only reserved for medical purposes,
Yeah.
Bollywood actors and trophy wives. It wasn't nearly as common as it was today,
Mm-hmm.
but all of this changed with the arrival of Instagram in the early 2010s. Almost overnight, we saw a rapid transformation in how
Mm-hmm.
people presented themselves online, and the images of people we see. Now, we've already discussed what the Kardashians and other celebrities would do to get the perfect picture. After the surgeries, camera angles, and airbrushing, the final image is barely recognizable as the person it depicts. Instagram puts this power into the
Yeah, I've seen plenty of people that look real good in Instagram. In real life, they don't look like that. I've seen a lot of them. Like, yeah, I've seen, no, they don't look like that.
of the people. With the high-powered camera in people's
Tons of 'em?
pockets,
Yeah.
they could take what would have been a normal photo, add a filter and some Photoshop to it, and create a vision of perfection.
Mm-hmm.
All the little flaws and blemishes that make people human were ironed out. Now nearly anyone could achieve the level of unrealistic perfection that graced magazine covers for years. On its own, this
Well,
would have
also, like, you got to keep in mind that, like, they airbrush the shit out of this. Like, they're gonna be photoshopping all this out. They probably color corrected her
wonder if
eyes,
they close
maybe
these
even
ends.
the
Probably
lipstick
not
as well.
necessary.
Like this whole thing has been edited like crazy. It's not like they just went, oops, click, and that's it. Every aspect of it, yeah, of course.
its own, this would have been
You have one
troubling.
left to
For
do.
decades, people worried about the negative effect on people's self-esteem and self-image
jeez.
that beauty magazines and Hollywood had. But
1992.
Instagram took this to the next level. 100 times
You
in its
can do
problem
this?
by turning it into a global
That's crazy.
competition with millions of fans and billions of dollars on the line for the winners.
have two
So
retweet,
of
but
course,
let's save
wasn't
it. We
long
haven't saved
before
it in a
people
while.
realized
I remember I've seen people, like, I don't want to say names, right? But I've seen people that I knew on Instagram and I didn't even recognize them in real life. Like, there's some of them that are hot in real life too, but there's also some of them that aren't. It's a bit of both.
win this game, you had to go as far as possible. For the Instagram algorithm to bless you, you had to do whatever it took.
Shit,
The
this
more
one's even
focused on your
bigger,
image
but at
you
least it's
were,
not, like,
the more money and
curled,
popularity
so it's a little
you could get
easier.
as an influencer. Constantly being down
Yeah,
over you,
biggest one.
with feeds showing you all these people.
Actually, not
sucked
true.
into
I
the
think-
same Instagram algorithm. Tapping
If you like uncurl it, I think the curled one is actually longer.
into all your primal needs, playing into men's sexual urges, and for everybody's
Yep.
desire for fame and attention.
That
It
was
came
me.
about selling
Alright,
the
let's go do
illusion
the
of perfection.
scene.
For a successful influencer, every photo pushed this narrative a bit further forward. They showcased their perfect bodies, their perfect lives, relaxing by pools, in million-dollar yachts, penthouses across the world, smiling.
By the way, I don't really think that this is a problem with Instagram at all. Like, this is like, I know this might be a crazy take, but like, I actually don't think this is a problem with Instagram at all. It's a problem with people's the culture. Like, if we didn't have Instagram, people still be doing stupid shit.
I
like
think
this.
it's a
just
problem
it'd be
with
harder
rich
for them to
people.
figure out how to-
If we didn't have rich people, then we wouldn't have any problems. So we should just
do it.
we should just
Like,
like
the reality
kill all
is
the
that
rich people.
the culture, like, there are people that use Instagram in a healthy, normal way, and it doesn't erode and destroy their life. So it's like, why does it happen to some people and not other people? Well, obviously, you know, maybe some people are better at dealing with it. So maybe think about how to deal with it in a better way rather than try to take everything
Eat
away
the
from
rich.
the world because you're not equipped to deal with it. Like, that's the problem that I think a lot of, you know, like, takes on social
Even
media have,
silicone
is like the
silicone can
solution
be
to it
can
is
be
not
made edible with the right
it's
cooking
not
techniques.
to, you know, take accountability for your own behavior and how you feel. It is, I want the entire world to structurally change in a way that's beneficial to how I believe it would be beneficial. I find this to be very problematic. I do. Social media demonize bald people as well.
Did it? I don't think so.
That's because people don't like being like, okay, so that's not really true though, right? I mean, it's really not. Like, look at the guy, look at Austin
No, it's not.
Powers, Dr. Evil. I mean, come on. It's not social media, The
friends.
Rock.
Hi, I'm
It
Chris
mattered that
Wilson
none of
from
this
Grinding
was
Gear
actually real
Games.
and that it was all a fantasy. I mean,
What do you
strip away
mean?
the
It's
filters and the
enhanced.
stage moments.
Social
and you'd
media
just be
has
left with a sad
enhanced
picture of self-obsession
the
and
virility
insecurity.
of
Living
bald
this way and
people.
focusing your whole life on your image is a terrible recipe for disaster. You would expect models, the people who are selected by society as the best-looking people in the world, to have the least problems
Which,
with
by the way, like, a lot of models, in my opinion, are not particularly attractive. They just have certain body frames that show off clothes well. Like, I don't think this girl is super hot. I don't think so at all. But, like, there's a reason why, like, male models are like 6'2" or taller and female models are like 5'10". It's not a, like, that's not
critiquing their own appearance. But in fact, it's the opposite. Over 40% struggle with body dysmorphia and disordered eating. But this was just
Yeah.
for models. This used to just be for these kinds of people whose entire livelihoods depended on their image. But in the last few years, Instagram has globalized
Yeah, this one's gonna be a lot
toxic
easier because
mindset
it's straight.
because of the results of its grand competition for visual perfection. All of the perfect illusions posted by influencers online were eaten up by the hundreds of millions of users.
Oh, people
Instagram
love
gained
it.
in just a
People
few
love
short
eating
years.
shit.
Some parts of Instagram culture, like using filters and photoshopping your selfies, entered the mainstream and affected the rest of the internet. It all had the effect of making everyone subconsciously disappointed with their own comparatively boring lives. If you weren't part of the
See,
influence,
I never felt this way. Like, whenever I said, I would always see people going out and doing stuff, I'd be like, oh my god, bro, that must be so, you gotta deal with that shit? God damn, like, are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? I gotta deal with
Yeah, I
this
feel
shit?
the same way.
It
when I
was
see
nuts.
people
Like,
going out
yeah,
and doing
for
stuff.
me, I never cared about any of that shit.
It doesn't matter.
it's released, then your life
Would you
looked
get plastic
worse than the
surgery if
ones
you were a
you'd see
female?
online every
Maybe.
single day. And if you didn't have the flawless figure and perfect face like the influencers, then you just weren't good enough to join the club. The algorithm wouldn't bless you. You'd just be left in the bottom of the barrel, constantly refreshing your likes to see if anyone would give you more attention. And over time, this has led to a huge rise in insecurity, mental illnesses, and body dysmorphia amongst young people in particular. All the perfection made people think that the natural imperfections that everyone else has was something to be ashamed of. Inevitably, influencers were ready to swoop in and
Well,
sell
it is something to be ashamed of. That's why they put makeup over it. Like, what are we talking about here? It's obvious. And this is the problem, is like everybody likes to talk about this from some kind of fucking idealized perspective. Yeah. Why are girls getting BBLs? Because guys like fat asses. That's the reason why. Nobody likes to see wrinkles. It's fucking gross. So that's why people put makeup over their wrinkles and they get Botox to not
The phrase
see them.
is commonly
Like,
attributed
that's just the
to
way it is.
political
So
philosopher
it's like everybody tries to
Jean
fucking
Jacques Rousseau.
moralize and like high road this shit. But the truth is that, like, why do people use this? Because it makes them look better. Like, fucking
know that.
obviously. Obviously, that's what happens. I do, but not because I get. Look, I get it, but like, it's not like this is happening for no reason. Like, I've seen girls. I'm just gonna listen. I've seen plenty of girls that go and they're getting, let's say, 1,000 or 2,000 likes on their photos. They get surgery, and they're getting 5 or 10,000 likes on their photos after that. Yep. That's ROI. Like, they do it because it works. Do likes pay the bills? No, but OnlyFans does. So think about that. So it wasn't a thing before cosmetic surgery. Can't tell me these fake over the top bottoms are attractive.
Maybe I should try
So
OnlyFans.
you might think that, but if you look at these girls' Instagrams that have this stuff, they have tons
I'm
of
sure
followers,
and
they have tons of likes.
There's a kink
And they have
somewhere in there
OnlyFans,
for
and they're in like the 1 or
disgruntled game
0.1%.
developer.
Like, these girls are making 6 figures, 7 figures doing this. You might think that she looks like, I don't know, like a weird animal or something like that, but somebody wants to fuck that animal. And the truth is that a lot of people do. So that's the reality. Like, I know it's like nobody wants to talk about this, but it's true. There's clearly an audience for it, yeah.
solution to the problem they had made worse. Most of them promoting harmless temporary fixes like their own cosmetic brands and makeup. The Kardashians would gain hundreds of millions of followers on Instagram and then promote their makeup lines, making billions in the process. But for some of these Instagram-fueled insecurities, there was only one way to really change it. If you wanted a bigger butt like the models on Instagram, a slimmer waistline, bigger boobs, or for guys a better jawline, a better face, plastic surgery was the easiest and quickest option. It didn't matter that it was fake.
Well, that's very important to keep in mind. The easiest and quickest option. Because so this is the thing. If you work out and you're a guy, it will change the way that your face looks. And I think that in general, if you look at 100 guys that don't work out regularly and 100 guys that do work out regularly, I bet if you look at the side by side, the guys that are working out regularly and are in shape are going to have a better facial structure and facial
getting motivated to work out right now.
Than the guys that don't.
Is
I think so. 10 times out of 10. I think nine.
Stop retoping.
Right,
stop
that's just
doing
how it is.
Retopology and
so yeah,
get up and do
cheat. Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons. But here's the problem, though, right?
Push-ups,
What's easier? Going to the doctor and having them just do a thing, or going to the gym 5 days a week, working out, managing your calories, making sure that you're watching what you're eating,
you guys feel motivated
exercising
to exercise
regularly, and not doing drugs. So, Jesus Christ!
let's
Let's go over to South Korea.
I am definitely motivated now, even though it's 3 a.m.
And that's why people do it.
If it worked for other people,
doing the
it would
mewing
work
thing?
for you
Oh,
too.
yeah.
The whole insecurity was built on fake image to begin with. And so Instagram has duped tens of millions, even hundreds of millions.
Well, I feel like the mewing thing, I don't really understand it. It's that's whenever you put the tongue at the top of your mouth, right?
Nope.
Is that it?
You don't feel motivated? I thought you were big into exercise.
It's fake? It's probably not fake.
You're doing a bazillion.
It's probably in between, where it works for some people, it doesn't for others, based off of just muscle composition.
people into thinking they had a real problem, and that the only way to fix this problem would be through medical procedures. If you could just save up enough money, maybe you could look like your idol. Maybe then you could get enough likes.
Maybe
and
then
attention
people will love you.
finally feel worthy.
Get enough
Sure,
likes.
People realize it's an endless problem that you'll never be happy with.
You'll
Of
never
course,
get enough
plastic
And
likes.
it is important to keep in mind that there are some people
The
that have
likes,
something that they
the
really don't
desire
like
for
about how
likes
they
is
look, and then they get plastic surgery and they
constantly
fix it, and then their
increasing.
life is better because they're happy. So, like, I don't think that all plastic surgery is bad, but like, pathological plastic surgery where it's like, I'm doing this, I'm changing this, and I have to do this. It's like, I feel like, and doctors even make sure that, like, my understanding is that doctors will try to like do a psychological almost evaluation on people before they do plastic surgery on them in some places in order to make sure that they're not that kind of a person. Very slippery slope. Yeah, but I do think that there are some people that get plastic surgery for like something that's like clearly wrong with their face, and then they fix it and they feel better. That's it. Yeah, some small fixes can improve your life. Yeah, exactly.
Surgery won't fix your insecurities. After one procedure is over, something else pops up that needs to be fixed. Realistically, even if you don't mind plastic
It's like
surgery,
a car. Y'all ever get a car and like you fix the car's you get a new like the, well, let's say the belt is fucked up, so you got to get a new belt. Okay, all right, now the air filter's fucked up. Okay, all right, we can fix that. That's easy. All right, now the fuel pump. Oh my god. All right, we fix the fuel pump. A month later, holy shit, the AC's not working. You have to take it back. Okay, that's fine. All right, well then now it's like, oh my god,
That's a really shitty car.
there's so, yeah, it's so many imperfections. Yeah, it's like WoW gear. Exactly, there's always more.
it's still better in moderation. A few touch-ups could be seen as a positive thing if it doesn't lead to more insecurity, but the beauty standards that Instagram was pushing didn't push people towards moderation. Instead, they made everyone else want to look the same. And the more of your friends that got
Time to
plastic
buy a
surgery,
new
the more of your
car.
idols that got surgery, the
Throw
bigger the
away the
desire
old
you'd
one.
have yourself for getting surgery.
It's also
People-
like girls that have their friends do it, right? Because then like their
It's
friends
like
are getting more
cyberpunk.
attention from guys and they're being treated better, and then it's like a social pressure.
People call it the Instagram face, characterized by perfect skin, luscious and full lips, sharp cheekbones, and long eyelashes. It's become what millions of young women around the world dream of having. Of course, it's only possible with surgery, Botox, and Photoshop, and the world will move on to a different beauty standard before long. But this hasn't stopped people from trying to achieve this illusion. It's especially noticeable in celebrities, and promoted everywhere on Instagram's algorithm. Whether or not plastic surgery is involved, tons of models, singers, and movie stars have slowly changed their image to match the Instagram templates. Ariana Grande is a good example. You can see the progression towards the Instagram singularity over time with this picture. Notice how
That's definitely true. Like I, you know, now that I look at it, it definitely feels like there's kind of like a mode that like a lot of girls have that look exactly like that. Yeah. It's the same person. Yeah, the convergence. I never really thought of it that way, but I think that's actually a really good way to see it.
Convergence.
Yeah.
her eyes have gone stretched out, her nose has changed, and her lips have gotten fuller.
Isn't
She's
that
also
from, like, a
lost an
video game?
unhealthy
The
amount of weight,
Convergence?
which is a huge problem when it isn't healthy. Obviously, people can look
Where is it
whatever way they
from?
want to look, but there's something really sad about all of these young people getting duped into thinking their natural beauty isn't good enough.
like something
the
from
modern
Warframe,
standards
The
that Instagram and its whole
Convergence.
culture have imposed on people drives them to do this to themselves.
course.
Of course, that's not the only soul-destroying app
Destiny
that pushes
2.
people towards cosmetic surgery. Improving your performance on dating apps are also some of the top reasons
Well,
people
yeah. Tinder users more likely to consider plastic surgery. Wow. Fishermen more likely to consider bait. Somebody got paid to write this?
people go under the knife. The most popular dating apps focus the courtship process almost purely on what people look like. People look at your picture for a second or two, then make a split-second decision on whether you meet their standards.
Yeah.
You can easily see why plastic
Obviously.
surgery would give you an advantage for this. Filters and editing helps, but it's too obvious if it's done poorly. An artificial face underneath all of that makes the final picture much more effective.
Mhm.
Lots of the procedures that give you an Instagram face also work especially well with filters and airbrushing. So much so that some people design their own faces to look especially good in their online photos. What's
That's
loose-
crazy. That's some fucking, like, bro, that's some Black Mirror shit. Oh my god. Then your kids are born ugly as fuck. Yeah, I remember that one photo, and then, like, the girl in the photo, apparently it wasn't even true, and it ruined her life. Yeah, I remember that. Think about whenever AIs used to min-max to make you feel bad about yourself, so you buy the solution. Oh, you think, like, yeah, well, I mean, that's like the Schlatt filter. Remember whenever he would always do that? And he would filter himself, and, like, nobody, like, I feel like there are people that that were fans of Schlatt that actually don't know what he looks like. Yeah, clearly Black Mirror was written by a time traveler. Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise. I mean, this is just what's going to happen with anybody. And I think really the solution to this is, you know, like give people like, I think it's like internal. Like people need to take some degree of accountability for how they feel about different things, because there's always going to be ways that people find to hate themselves. Like if you have a problem, somebody will be able to figure that out inside of you. So you can't look at the world and like try to protect, like, you know, change the world to protect yourself.
Is something when you actually look at them. While you may think the Instagram face looks good on Instagram itself, next to a group of normal people in real life, it just looks kind of strange and alien. One thing about all the ways Instagram has led to the rise in plastic surgery is that it doesn't discriminate by age. In fact, young people and even teenagers are much more susceptible to the coordinated attack on your self-image that Instagram delivers. While the Instagram face doesn't really bear any relation to people's natural faces, it is similar to someone who's in their early to late 20s. All the teenagers browsing Instagram...
Well, it's also, I mean, there's some people that look that way. It's the same as anything. Like, there are some people that look that way, but there's just not a lot of them. Like, naturally.
And wishing they looked that good, attempted to get procedures that made them look older rather than younger. This is the reason why plastic surgery and cosmetic procedures are growing fastest amongst people under 30, and even...
As of 2020, 18% of all cosmetic surgeries in the United States were performed on patients 13 to 19. Well, like, I mean, this has got to be like, what does this include? Does this include like taking out somebody's wisdom teeth? Like, there's no way it does, right? Like, but there's got to be some explanation of this that makes sense, right? Because like, I just cannot fucking believe this. That's got to be like a medical reason or braces or something like that, dental thing. Yeah, this has got like, bro, this is nuts. There's no way I can believe this. Oh my God.
Faster in teenagers. Some of these procedures are what's called preventative plastic surgery. People are getting Botox and other things done in order to prevent future wrinkles, not just fast.
Oh my God. Oh my God. It's not gonna matter. It's just not. I'm sorry, it's insane, and it's like, it's just not gonna work, man. Like, I knew there was one girl that, man, I remember whenever we would go out somewhere, she would want to use an umbrella, even whenever it wasn't raining, so the sun wouldn't get on her face.
It's very common here in Asia.
And I'm like, a parasol? What are you, fucking Mary Poppins? Put that shit away and act like a normal goddamn American. Get the fuck out of here. I don't want to hear that shit. This is ridiculous.
Like super normal here.
Shut up. It's truly insane that people are trying to fix a false problem.
Maybe not in Malaysia, definitely in China.
Because of one app. Another far more disturbing procedure is buccal fat removal.
No,
it's been all the
like
rage on Instagram
cheeks,
for quite a while now, because it matches the current beauty standards online. Even if you don't know what it really is, you'll recognize the effects. In the procedure, a surgeon makes cuts inside the mouth and removes what's called the buccal fat pad, which rests under the cheekbones. The result is far more prominent cheekbones and that sunken, hollow look that's all the rage right now. It makes you look far older and your face look thinner, but it's not without giant risks. The procedure itself...
I feel like if they did that to me, I would just look like a corpse.
He looks like a
my
corpse.
face is already really thin. Like, I would actually look like a fucking corpse. A I'd be a necromancer. Yeah, exactly.
Can be painful and dangerous.
The Crypt
As people
Keeper?
get older, their faces naturally get thinner and the natural layer of fat on your face gets less prominent. It's an irreversible procedure. All of the people getting it might regret it in 10 years down the line, unless they were going for that skeletal look in the
Yeah, that's something... That's crazy because, like, if I go back and I look at myself... Let me see if I could show you guys. I mean, this is me back in, like... My face used to be like that a lot. Let's see if I can find a good one. Yeah, like, I used to be skinny as fuck. So anyway, my mother... No, it's not. It's... shit. I think you can kind of tell. But like my face was super fucking thin. Yeah. Skeletor? Exactly. Yeah. The arm? I was 108 pounds in this video. Yeah, no cheek muscles. Well, the reason why I didn't have... So, I'm going to say something that's like crazy fucked up. So, basically, one of the reasons why I have a beard is because my jaw literally rotted from not having enough teeth. Because my teeth rotted out. So that's why, because I used to have, if you go back and you look at old videos of me, I have a pretty normal jawline. But then all the teeth rotted out. I couldn't eat like that anymore. So I have no muscles in my jaw. And so now I eat with the front of my mouth, which is why like my face is a little bit weird. Did you get surgery at 13? No. No, exactly. And so, yeah, the bone reabsorbs as well. Exactly. And so it's not weird. Yeah. And so anyway, that's what happened. Did you fix your teeth? Oh, a lot of them, but I never replaced the back ones. It doesn't really show. Yeah, not really. But like, again, if you look at like before and after, it definitely shows. Your face is fine, but different. Well, I know, but it's changed because of that reason.
I'll be right back. Give me a sec. I'm back.
Yeah, it's like, for me, this is actually like, it's weird because I used to look more like this. Whereas like not before.
I'm probably gonna go after this video is done though. So maybe like another 20 minutes.
Molars provide the most muscle for your jaw. I have zero.
Streamed long enough today.
Yeah, I don't have any.
If we want to look at where we might be in the future with the rise of cosmetic surgery, we only need to turn to South Korea. The country is in the future of plastic surgery. A third of Korean women aged 19 to 29 have undergone the knife, and the numbers just keep on rising, especially amongst young people. 60% of South Korean high school students want to get surgery in the future. There's even stories.
That's South Korea, though, right? I mean, like, that's what they do over there.
Stories of young people winning plastic surgery vouchers from their schools to help with their future careers.
Bro, the schools? It's a high school that's giving away prizes for plastic surgery? I love that. That's so sick.
What's going on here?
Oh
Is this
my
a warning
God.
for the future of the West? Well, one theory is that it's all part of a push towards stricter conformity and a move away from individualism. In a culture where your social standing and your reputation are highly valued, losing face can mean everything. Breaking cultural norms and deviating from what's expected of you can damage both you and your family's reputation. With so much value put on that by everyone else,
Korea's
people who
crazy.
break away get
I
ostracized.
see this all the time, and it's like these girls, it's especially Korean girls, and oh Jesus, so basically, a lot of them will post photos of themselves, but they'll never show their face. But then every once in a while, they'll have like one photo of them with their face, and like you can see them, and it's like, you're hot. What are you doing? Just post a photo with your fucking face. Well, like, because like you would expect it to be like, you know, like awful, but no, it's like, yeah, dude, the body image shit over there is crazy. No, modesty is great. Well, I mean, bro, this isn't modesty. They're posting pictures of their boobs, but they don't want to show their face, okay? Like, I think you're misunderstanding what we're talking about here.
And excluded from society. One of the many problems that this can cause has come about with modern society's focus on looks and aesthetics, both in the West and in South Korea.
I really noticed that a lot. You know how I noticed this? It was actually whenever I was watching a video about high schools in like the 80s and the 90s. And nobody in there was trying to wear like any kind of crazy clothes or anything like that. They were just wearing normal clothes. Whereas like now, if you look at high schools, it's kids that are constantly trying to wear things that are like expensive shit. Yeah, Jinko's not normal. Well, that was like really, I mean, that was only like a small subset of people in high school, right? Nobody gave a fuck. Yeah. It's like the disparity was way bigger. Yeah, hype culture, I know.
We might have Instagram face. It's a relatively new development compared to South Korea's rigid beauty standards.
Because like whenever I went to high school, this is what I would wear to high school. I would wear cargo pants to high school and a white or a black t-shirt. Either a plain white t-shirt or I had another black t-shirt and it said, I do all my own stunts. And I had like 5 other ones that I would wear, and that would wear my World of Warcraft hoodie. And it's like, I never really thought about like what I was wearing or like whether it was problematic or not. Yeah, or the army shirt. Yeah, I wore the army shirt a lot too. It was a good rotation. I was an edgy dude. A little bit.
Same facial features are valued above all others and plastered on every billboard, commercial, TV show, and music video. Conforming to this standard has become the same as any other social rule or cultural pressure. It becomes almost rude to assault other people's eyes with your appearance if it doesn't match the cultural mold. Your face and how you look get
So
wrapped
it's
up in
rude to be ugly? I like that. That sounds good. Yeah, that's... Bro. That's real good. Female body inspector shirt. So my friend Eric had that shirt, and I remember they made him go home and change it. Because he wore it, and he's like, hey, he's cool. You see FBI, but it's like boobs. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, and then they made him change it.
the idea of success
kinda
and
awesome,
happiness
yeah.
pushed by the rest of the culture.
I remember
No
I
wonder-
bought a shirt. It says, fuck y'all, I'm from Texas. And my mom said, you are never allowed to wear that shirt anywhere ever. And so I've only just put the shirt on my wall. I never wore it.
Plastic surgery is so popular. It's become the difference between getting that promotion you've been working towards and missing out.
Yeah, it
the
is.
same thing that's happened in South Korea has also come to China as well. The industry is booming there now. The amount of people getting surgery increased by 600% between 2009 and 2018. This huge demand has led to a sharp spike in unlicensed and dangerous plastic surgery that's led to some truly horrifying results. And what you're seeing here right now is the work of a mysterious figure known online as Dr. Kim. He came to prominence on TikTok after these videos showing his patients' uncanny transformations went viral. They're clear examples of what can go horribly wrong with plastic surgery. The face lifts are so tight, it looks completely unnatural.
You know, this reminds me of a Bill Burr bit where he said that he'd rather look like a 50-year-old man than a 30-year-old lizard. Yeah, it just reminds me of that.
and people are paying a fortune for this. Their natural beauty has vanished under an artificial glaze, and you're left wondering whether they can even smile or frown anymore. Now, it makes sense through the lens of cultural...
They can't, bro. Like, they can't move their eyebrows and shit. No, I know about this. Yeah, it's just... What the fuck are you trying to do with yourself? What the hell is wrong with you?
Conformity. The pressures to look young and attractive are so high that people
Who's
are led to
that?
these extremes and are willing to do anything to achieve that sense of perfection. Even going to unlicensed butchers like Dr. Kim and tough series
Unlicensed
investigating these
butchers.
images.
Unlicensed,
Damn.
I would have
really
never
dark
guessed.
stories, as it appears that Dr. Kim is not one person but a
Yeah.
pseudonym used by shady unlicensed.
And like, so there was this one video I saw, it got recommended to me. It's this like Korean guy who's like 57 and he's like in like super good shape. And they ask him, they're like, you know, what do you do to take care of yourself? And he's like, well, what I do is I work out all the time, I eat lean, and I don't do any drugs. And they're like, okay, yeah, but what's your skincare routine? He's like, I use water on my face and I usually take showers. And they're like, okay, but like, what's the secret though? He's like, well, if you go back to exercising and taking care of yourself and working out regularly and eating properly and not doing drugs. So like, that's really kind of what I do. And they're like, yeah, okay, but like, what could, all right, Jesus, that's too hard. Isn't there a second option? That's I need the video. Yeah, really? That's it? Genetic lottery? Well, it is. Like, obviously, like, the guy's got great genetics. Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, I have a lot of friends that do a lot of drugs. And they look a lot older than I do. They look way older than I do. So, it's better not to do that. Of course, yeah. Good genetics is largely.
I've never
dope.
done drugs in my life, just because
I don't know. Like I think
I've
it really
never
depends.
found them.
plastic surgery company.
I don't
called
like the idea
Shanghai
of
Fujian
contacting
Medical
some
Beauty Clinic.
skeezy
And from
guy
the
in the
evidence he
alleyway
gathered,
with
they've been
drugs.
accused of using expired drugs, have been sued by multiple people and
What the
companies,
fuck?
and they've even trafficked counterfeited drugs
And
to
also,
use in
like-
their practice.
Oh my god.
Whilst these pictures definitely aren't
I've
indicative
never
of China's
felt the
entire
want
beauty
to
industry, they do show where criminals
take
can kind of
drugs.
profit from exploiting it.
Oh
All the
yeah, I mean, like this is a big thing. Like I've dated a girl from China before, right? And so I know a little bit about this. It's man, bro, like they are down bad. They are down bad.
normal.
Jesus.
Even handsome people you see in the before pictures were unhappy with how they looked because their culture made them insecure. It opened the door to criminals looking to make an easy buck, with no regard for what their victims will have to live with for the rest of their lives. And it seems like the West is moving farther towards this point of cultural conformity with the help of Instagram, the biggest promoter of these artificial beauty standards. Sure, there's more virtue signaling than ever. Everyday corporate media outlets tell people that
You
differences
should
are
learn
good.
to love yourself. Well, this is the reason. So, like, this is what I think. This is the most toxic thing that I think some girls do, is they talk about how much they want people to have like a, they're like, oh, you should love yourself and everything like that. While they like enable, like they're like, oh, you're so beautiful. It's like some like massively overweight girl, and it's like, why are you saying this? You're just saying this to make yourself feel good.
And that we should love our own features and characteristics, whatever they might be. But at the same time, it does seem like we're going in the opposite direction. The pressures to have a perfect body and face is so high. Nearly everyone on TV and in films looks pretty much the same, all completely plastic, fake, and hollow. It doesn't matter what the context is in Hollywood now. If your shirt comes off in a movie, you need a six-pack and you need to be on steroids. And then
Yep.
also lie about it. The dating world is by far the best indicator
I
of
just
how
wish that they'd be honest. I feel like that would help a lot of guys if like Zac Efron or like who's the fucking guy that plays Jack Reacher or like The Rock, they're like, yeah, I do steroids like fucking crazy and that's why I look like this.
selective
Yeah, it's like,
people's
obviously.
beauty standards have become. With modern dating apps and our image-focused culture, your face needs to pass the swipe test before you can even play the
Reacher
game.
says he does?
More
That's
and more
good.
men and women get pushed out of the system, rejected because
Alan
they
Richardson?
no longer
Yeah, there you go.
conform well enough to the modern Instagram face beauty standard and its male counterpart. And so much exposure to inhuman perfection on Instagram has warped people's standards and made a whole generation of lonely outcasts.
Incels,
There's even
yeah.
people talking about an incel revolution nowadays, as more and more people get
Incel revolution. You know what the incel revolution is going to be? Having AI robot girlfriends.
pushed to the sidelines without any romantic interest.
Yep.
While at the same time,
I'm doing my
another
part.
huge section of people are becoming literally plastic. That's why you should never expose yourself to the toxic sludge that Instagram promotes. As every time you go on the app, you're subtly, subconsciously becoming more and more insecure. Disconnecting from Instagram's twisted beauty standards means that you can actually truly appreciate people that the rest of the world might not even see.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, a lot of the stuff that he says is definitely true. I don't think that really the problem is Instagram. I think that it's mental health. I think people don't have any tools or resources to manage their mental health. By the way, this is a great video. I'm going to link you guys the video. Make sure to give the guy a sub. I've watched Moon's videos before. I really like them a lot. Yeah, Instagram enables it. It does. It does. They enable it, and I just, like, I don't want to get rid of Instagram. I think that people, like, if you feel like Instagram is fucking with your life, you should 100% stop using it. Just stop using it. It's like, hey, my head hurts whenever I hit myself in the face. Well, stop hitting yourself in the fucking face. How about that? Sounds crazy, but there it is. Technology has also outpaced human evolution. Yeah, that's probably true, too. It's parents' advice. Who funds the surgery? Yeah, I think there's that, too. Like, growing up, I mean, like, because I can't really talk too much shit about this, right? Because in a way, I've had plastic surgery. I've had like or cosmetic surgery. Like a lot of my teeth are fake. Yeah. Like I have fake teeth. And so that's not the way I originally spawned in as. Yeah, my nose is fake. It's not actually. I do have a cosmetic nose though. I can't smell anything out of my nose and I can't really breathe out of my nose either. But that's more practical. It is definitely more practical. Yeah, it's medical though. You need that stuff. Yeah, exactly. But it's a bit different if your teeth need to be repaired. I understand that it's a bit different, but it's not completely different. And that's the only point that I'm making. And so it's not mandatory, though? No, my mom ate plenty of shit with no teeth. She had like 2 teeth or 3 teeth left at the end. So, yeah, I mean, and that was the case for a long time. And so, yeah, no, it was bad, bro. Like, it was awful. And so, yeah, she would like have to gum shit down. It was really bad at the end. Yeah. I mean, well, she had that for like maybe like 7-8 years, honestly. It was brutal. But yeah, anyway, I think Instagram is it's definitely an enabler for mental illness. It is a huge enabler for mental illness. And I think that all social media is. I feel like the only way you can solve this problem is by making people stop blaming Instagram. That might sound like maybe counterproductive, but the moment that people realize that the problem that they have is internal and it's not because of Instagram, then they can actually solve it. But everybody wants to externalize their problems and they want to look for another reason that it's somebody else's fault. Oh, it's Instagram that's making me. It's because, you know, like, oh, it's the food. It's something else. No, just it's you, man. It's you. It's not just Instagram. It's social media in general. Yeah, exactly. I think so, too. Social media is an accelerant for mental health issues. It is. It absolutely is an accelerant for mental health issues. 100%. There's multitude of factors for mental illnesses coming from social media. It's a nice mix of community. By the way, the app is designed. Yeah, I think that like some of the different types of algorithms and things like that should absolutely be criticized for fucking sure. I do it on social medias, and hopefully I hope more people do. I like using social media. I've never had a problem with it at all. Like, I just don't worry about it. I mean, the thing is, like, I know what I look like. I look in a mirror, right? That's it. What's your opinion on guys who make surgeries to make them taller? I mean, if it'll make you happy, do it. Like, I don't care what people do. Do whatever you want to do. It's dumb. Yeah, it's dumb, but, like, guys care a lot about height. So it's like, it's easy to say it's, like, I can say it's dumb. I'm 6'3".
Wow, that's
it's not a problem
tall.
for me. I don't have to worry about it because like, but I bet some guy who's like
I thought
5'6"
he was
would
like
say like me feeling the way that I do about my
my
hair
hair or
is
something,
also
but no,
dumb
he's, like,
if he has a good
pretty damn tall.
hairline. So it's like, it's easy to say it's stupid, but if you take a second and you think about it for a minute, it's like, wait a minute, like you know, they feel the same way that you feel for just a different reason. It's perspective. Yeah, guys' height are like women's reasons for plastic surgery. Yeah, sure, I get it. Using apps on the internet itself, it's like teaching someone how to cast spells and magic. In reality, 7 out of 10 people will use terrible ways. Yeah, it's probably true. Not every guy gives a fuck about height, bro. You're right, but it's like, remember
Oh my
that
God,
one
so
Channel
much free
5
topo,
video
dude.
where it was like that weird, creepy pickup artist who said height matters if you think it does? And I was like, what the fuck? That's like the smartest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, there are absolutely guys that like height doesn't bother them, and he's like such a fucking idiot the entire rest of the time. And then it was like just in that one moment, it's like, wait, yeah, true. And then he went back to being stupid. But yeah, that one part definitely helped.
All right, guys, that's the end of the video. I gotta go to sleep. It's almost 4 a.m. here. We got a lot done today. We got like the horns. Well, most of the horns. If we hide this, that's how much we have. Still got a decent amount left to do there. But yeah. See you guys later. Bye-bye.